Their daughter hadn't cried all day. That was the problem. The golden retriever was the only one in the house who knew what the silence meant. Juniper was 26 months old and going through a phase that her parents, Winona and Dale Beaumont, had begun describing to relatives as the quiet phase. Slightly uneasily, because she had not been a quiet baby. She had been a vocal, expressive, communicative baby who cried specifically and protested loudly, and had a full repertoire of sounds for hunger, tiredness, discomfort, and the existential grievance of not being picked up immediately. In the past 10 days, she had gone quieter, not withdrawn. She still played, still pointed, still brought her books to be read and her blocks to be stacked. But the crying had diminished. The protest sounds had diminished. She had been, everyone said, easier. Easier was the word they used. They meant it as a compliment. Their golden retriever, 4-year-old Chester, did not experience the past 10 days the same way. He began following Juniper, not in the casual dog follows the interesting person way, with a specific proximity and a specific focus on her midsection. He walked behind her at close range. He sat beside her with his nose directed at her lower back when she stood at her toy shelf. He pressed his nose to her abdomen when she sat on the floor in front of him. She accepted all of this with the mild, tolerant interest of a toddler who is accustomed to a dog and not alarmed by it. Winona noticed, but did not alarm. Dogs followed toddlers. Chester was attentive to Juniper. This was not new. What was new was the night of day 9. Juniper woke at 1 a.m., which she had not done in 8 months, and cried in a sustained way that was different from the tired cry and different from the bad dream cry. A low, insistent cry with a particular register that Winona recognized as the pain cry from when Juniper was much smaller, from before she had language for what was wrong. She went to Juniper. Chester was already at the crib, not at the door. At the crib rail, both front paws up, nose through the slats at Juniper's abdomen level. Winona got Juniper up. She held her. She tried to find the pain by touch, pressing gently on her abdomen, her lower back, her sides. Juniper cried harder when she pressed the lower back, not dramatically. Harder. She called the pediatric after-hours line at 1:47 a.m. Subscribe now, because what the urine culture confirmed 2 days later, and what the pediatrician explained about how a urinary tract infection presents in a toddler who is still pre-fully verbal, explains both the 10 days of quiet and the 10 days of Chester's nose at her midsection. Juniper had a urinary tract infection, not acute, not the kind that arrives with dramatic fever and obvious distress in an older child or adult, the kind that builds in a pre-verbal toddler who cannot say where it hurts, cannot say that something is wrong, can only reduce the behaviors that make the discomfort worse and become, from the outside, easier. Dr. Sandra Osei, their pediatrician, explained it the following morning. UTIs in toddlers frequently present without fever. The behavioral presentation is often the primary signal. Reduced activity, quieter demeanor, possible increased clinginess or withdrawal. For a child with limited verbal capacity, the available communication channel for chronic low-grade discomfort is behavioral suppression. They become quieter because they have learned that certain movements or sounds increase the pain. She looked at Winona. The easier phase you described is consistent with a child self-managing pain they can't articulate. Winona sat with that for a long time. She asked about Chester. Dr. Ozay said, UTIs produce a very specific compound profile in urine, the bacterial metabolites, the inflammatory markers. Dogs with high olfactory sensitivity will frequently detect the signature of a urinary infection through proximity. The lower back and abdominal attention your dog was showing is consistent with a dog orienting toward the location of an infection source he was smelling. He didn't have the right word either. He used his nose. Has a pet ever reacted to something about your child's body that turned out to have a physical explanation? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Juniper completed a course of antibiotics. Within 5 days, she was loud again, protesting bath time with her full repertoire, dramatically objecting to vegetables with the specific outrage of a child who has recovered her voice and intends to use it. Chester went back to his normal proximity patterns. He no longer focused on her lower back. He followed her the same way he always had, because she was interesting and because the house was his and monitoring it was his job. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Winona told Dale one evening, "We called it the quiet phase." He said, "I know." She said she was in pain for 10 days. Dale looked at Chester, who was asleep in the hallway. He said, Chester wasn't calling it the quiet phase. No, Winona said. He wasn't. Next, the Labrador, who started sleeping in front of the air vent in the baby's room every night. And what the air quality test found in the duct.